up by that cruiser that drove against the wind. But all I want is you. I know that fire when you touch me, my vision gets so dimmed. Yeah, all I want is you. We are all the same. Fame, attention, confirmation. Why do we care? What is it worth? What is it worth? We are all the same. We want to be loved, but that is not the same as being loved by you. We are all the same. We want to be loved, but that is not the same as when I'm loved by you. By you. By you. What is it worth? We are all the same. We want to be loved, but that is not the same as being loved.
Alrighty, we're live. Alright, this is Double V Sports Talk, episode 3. We have a special guest. Our brother Charlie is with us today. So let's jump right into it. We're talking about the Masters. Today is the final rounds of the Masters. Round 4 has actually already started. I think they teed off around 9 o'clock this morning. What you guys seen so far? Who do you think has a chance to come out winning this today?
I think anybody that doesn't say Dustin Johnson is an absolute fool. That's before Charlie even is able to get on here. But, I mean, the way that he's played the last 2 days has been absolutely outstanding. The last 3 days has been absolutely outstanding. I mean, he has 2 rounds of 65 and is the clear leader here. He's going to be there in the final round. I know to start off with M and Cameron Smith both started off 2 under on the first 4 holes to pull within 2 strokes of them. But I just don't think it's going to be enough once he gets on the course. I mean, the guy had 5 birdies and an eagle yesterday and has been playing bogey-free golf. I mean, there's a reason he's number 1 in the world. I've been impressed with John Rahm up until yesterday's back 9. It kind of fell apart back then. And same thing with Justin Thomas. I don't know what was going on there, but he was playing extremely well. He was being very consistent. His short game was on point. But then once again, they're on the back 9. Him and John Rahm just both kind of fell off. Roy McIlroy, I thought, had that first day when he was looking there, I think he was 2 over, and he has battled and fought his way back into a position where he can compete. It'll be interesting to see. I know we were all hoping to see Tiger do something this year, but just not meant to be. He did really well there in the first day, getting 4 under, and having to finish out day 2 on Saturday. I think it was just too much for his back. Seeing that he only went 1 under, and then even, I think it was just too much in one day for him for what his back was handling, especially not playing extremely well on Friday, but. I do think Dustin Johnson's got to be the clear favorite to finish this thing out. The dude, there's a reason he's number 1 in the world. Charlie?
No, I'd agree with you. Dustin Johnson has been very dominant, but I would say Cameron Smith. I would keep an eye. I wouldn't be surprised if he came up today victorious. He's within reach, and he's already playing well today. Being 2 under on the day, so I think it's going to come. I think it's going to come down to the last 2 holes for sure. I don't think it's going to be a clear victory by Dustin Johnson at the end.
My pick in the Masters was Dustin Johnson, just because I've said my picks. I said Dustin Johnson's been dominating. He's been on top. That's why he's ranked 1, how he's been playing. But I do agree that this is his to win. But I think this is a 3-person race right now. with Dustin, the Korean guy I am, and Cameron. It's gonna come down to them three because I think unless Rory, Dylan, and like them, they pull something out incredible, or those three guys I mentioned earlier just has a horrible day today. I think it's a 3-person race, and I just trust that Dustin's gonna come out and win the Masters today.
I can agree with that 100%. Go ahead, Matt.
Oh,
Cameron-
no, you're good.
Cameron just bogeyed. He's under for the day now.
So, looking forward to Wednesday. We got the NBA draft coming up. There's a lot of talk about what could happen, who could go where, and everything. There's a lot of talk that I think in last year's draft there was a clear number one. Everybody knew what was happening long before. Everybody knew Zion was going to be the guy. The question came who was going to be 2 and 3, but at the same time there were very clear 1, 2, and 3, and you could reverse the order on who's going to be 2 and 3. But everybody knew Zion was going number one. This year, it's not necessarily the case. You have guys that are a little bit more flexible. I do think this is a strong class based off of what we've seen up to this point. It's going to be a very young class, but there's a lot of different movement that can happen. A lot of different people can go to a lot of different places. I don't think there's a clear number one this year, and which I think makes things interesting. So let's go ahead and start off with you, Matt. What do you see as your top 5 mock drafts for Wednesday?
I got mine, and like I said, agreeing with you that I don't know who's gonna go where because I feel like especially my top 3, my number 2 is probably my only for sure doubt. But I'm taking. I have Anthony Edwards from out of Georgia going number 1. And then I have James Wiseman from Memphis 2, Lamal Ball, the Denny going 4, and Oba going 5. And like I was talking to Charlie before we went live, I think Anthony Lamelo, sorry. I can see them go 1 or 2. I can see if Anthony picks, I see the Hornets taking LaMelo, and if LaMelo goes first, I see Anthony going number 3. So those are 2 of the ones I just don't know yet. Who's going number 1? Who's going number 3?
Good. I'm trying to figure out what's going on with
You can go, Charlie, while he.
Go ahead. My video is frozen.
Well, I agree. I don't see LaMelo going to Golden State. I don't see him being a fit for that team. I don't see them wanting him. He did, however, go and practice with them. He was invited, but I mean, just it'd be crazy not to look at one of the top draft picks. At least have him over just to see him in person. But and that guy brings more nonsense into your locker room before he even puts the ball on the floor than most other players in this draft. But me and I were talking earlier. They need a big guy in Golden State. That team's gotten slowly smaller and smaller, and even with the departure of Kevin Durant, that dropped a couple inches off the average roster. I mean, because Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and Draymond. I mean, even though Draymond's the biggest, they're still not the biggest. They're still not giant guys. I mean, compared to us, they are, but not in the NBA. But I agree with Matthew. LaMelo, he could go first, or he could go third, depending on Edwards. It really depends. Edwards has the potential to be a great defensive player in the NBA, so I think both the Timberwolves and the Hornets give him an opportunity to be able to kind of do his thing. Not too many big stars on those teams. So I think Charlotte might be a better fit for him. But I think Denny will go number 4 overall. I mean, this guy could be the steal of the draft. If he can get his shot going, if he can become a fluent shooter, he could really be the best player in this draft. I think that's his biggest weakness. Is I think he shot 52% from the line last year, which is terrible. But if he can get, but he's a great defender. He can move as a big guy. He can move the ball up and down the court very easily. He's not afraid to take charge of the ball, and he has great control. Great setting up pick and rolls. Great rebounder, great defender. But after that, for the Cavaliers pick, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Because I'm not even sure who they're going to take. They could take Toppin. They could take Halliburton. It could be a flip of a coin, and then I know you guys said top 5, but I think it's important to keep in mind that Atlanta's been kind of floating around the idea of trading their draft pick. I know the Celtics are interested. There's word that they might trade all 3 of their first round picks for that number 6 overall pick, and then New Orleans has been floating with Drew Holiday and maybe trading him out for that 6 overall pick. So it's gonna be really interesting to see what happens at the last minute with that. But that's all I got.
Hey, yeah, no, I can agree with a lot of that. Looking at Minnesota, I think they need to get D'Angelo Russell some help. And when you're talking about trying to add a little bit, the thing that you look at with the Timberwolves is none of the top guys is exactly what they need to move forward right off the bat. So, do you take somebody like LaMelo Ball and try to turn him into a 1-2 combo in the front court there with Russell? You look and you got to think that he may be the best player in the draft right now. I'm not a big Ball family fan, but at the end of the day, it's the truth. I don't know if anybody can compete with him with what he's been doing. So I look at Minnesota taking LaMelo Ball to start things off. I agree with you guys with Golden State taking James Wiseman. I think that would give them some much-needed rebounding. They have Curry and Klay Thompson coming back, who are going to be shooting bombs over Baghdad all day long. So might as well get somebody to get the ball to them off the rebounds, be able to help them and help Draymond Green in that sense, and take a little bit of pressure off those shooters by having a true big man that can run down there in the front court. Now, obviously, for him to be able to fit with their playing style, he's going to have to increase his ability to shoot. But it'd be interesting to see what happens there. Now, with Charlotte, this is a tough one for me. My heart really wants them to take Anthony Davis. I'm a big Anthony Davis fan. In this year's draft, I think he can really do a lot of help a lot with that backcourt that they have. But at the end of the day, they've got to get a big man. They don't have a dominant big man in there. They don't have somebody that they can count on to rebound on a consistent basis. They don't have much help in the post on defense. So they're going to have to. I think the smart move is for them to go with the big man at USC. I just would love to see Anthony Edwards there playing for Charlotte. But with that being left, I think Chicago takes Anthony Edwards. So if he falls down to 4th, I think you're a fool not to take him and continue moving forward. And then from there, I think it gets a little interesting for Cleveland, because then at that point in time, they've got a bunch of interesting players that they have to choose from. But, I really wouldn't be surprised if they end up going Kellen Hayes, the point guard out of France. And I think that could be an interesting pick for him. I think he's a very solid player and potentially has the talent to go even earlier than that. But I think you either have to go with a point guard or somebody like Patrick Williams, who can help you in multiple spots there, be able to get out on the perimeter or out under the basket.
I'll say
Go ahead.
I'll just say something about LaMelo. You talked about him earlier. I got so many reservations with that cat, and that's why I think he might. I personally think he could be a bust, top three in this draft. I mean, the guy shot 25% from the 3-pointers last year, and even though he put on some weight in the offseason, and so did his brother, he still can't finish. I mean, he can't finish through other players. He's just not strong enough, and he doesn't lean in enough.
Well, you're gonna get bigger in the NBA. I mean, once you start, they'll get you eating right. You start getting in the weight room on daily amount of time. But I think for him, the reason why he's so considered top in this draft, especially, he's very inconsistent shooter, and that's one of his cons. But the ceiling is so high for how explosive and how many points he can drop that I think his chance of being definitely a star player is why he's being considered so high. And I feel like the stuff he struggles with, he can come around. So
No, I agree. I think he's worth the chance. I just don't know how in 10 years they're going to look back on this draft. You know.
mm-hmm.
I mean,
So
I mean, I like what Brian was saying about he was saying about if Anthony Edwards moves down to the Bulls, I think that'd be interesting. But I think Denny's still gonna be the man from Tel Aviv is still gonna be the shock of the draft. I think that guy's gonna get right in his shot in the next 2 years or so. But I think he does it better than Chicago, though.
I do too. I think that could be really interesting there for him. Everything moving forward. I'm trying to figure out why my stream keeps freezing.
I'll move us along real quick while.
Yeah.
So in college football this week, we got the number 10 Indiana took on at Michigan State. Indiana ended up winning 24-0, and just blowing out the Spartans with. But I was saying, the question I want to ask you guys: how legit is Indiana, and could they make a college playoff push?
Go ahead, Charlie.
Well, I mean, I don't think they can make a playoff push. On a level, especially when you're talking about Michigan. I mean, that both Michigan State and Michigan itself has been inconsistent for a couple years. Michigan is wildly up and down. I mean, even though they've stayed contenders, this is the first year they've really dropped off as big as they have, especially following that loss to Michigan State. I just don't think a blowout on a team's whose morale and a team whose probably coaches in his own head is going to determine whether they can make a playoff run. I mean, you got to be one of the top in the league, and I don't think Indiana eats with teams Clemson, Notre Dame, Alabama, Ohio State. I just don't think they're on that level. I mean, they're close, but I don't see it.
Brian, you want to go or me? I know Indiana's 4-0, and when you're looking at paper, who they beaten, Penn State, Michigan, and Michigan State, at the top of my head, I'm like, this team seems legit. But then when you look at it more depth, Michigan State hasn't been playing that well. Michigan's 1-3 now, after just losing last night to Wisconsin. And Penn State, I want to say they're still a good team. Just don't know how COVID affected. But watching that, breaking down the Indiana game, they had a lot of, although it was 24-0, they had a lot of mistakes in that game with their quarterback throwing 2 turnovers and stuff like that. But I want to. It comes down to this coming up week, and I know we'll talk about more into it against Ohio State, because I think everyone is considering Ohio State to come out of the Big Ten, and if Ohio State somehow loses, and I don't think they will, I would say Indiana will definitely show they are a legit team that can make the playoffs. But until they can beat a big team, like a key team like Ohio State, I don't think so.
And I agree. I mean, you still. I mean, this coming week, I think is going to determine who comes out of that side of the Big Ten East. With the Ohio State Indiana game, but Indiana has proven that they are a solid team, but I don't think they're on Ohio State's level. I still don't think anybody in the Big Ten's on their level, and unless Ohio State just completely drops an egg, I don't see them losing to anybody in that conference, which I think will prevent anybody else from getting into the college playoffs out of that conference. I think on the other side of things, you know, it'll be interesting to see. Talk about Michigan State. Um, in Michigan State, Michigan, they've kind of looked embarrassing the last couple weeks. And so I don't think those wins that they have at Indiana right now are going to be as critical to their success moving forward because of who their opponents have been and the way that their opponents are playing. But I think it's going to be interesting to see what ends up happening here with Northwestern Wisconsin. But I just don't see Indiana as a team that can even make it to the playoffs right now. So let's look at the other side of the country right now. We had number 11 Oregon going to Washington State last night. That was a really good game there. Before Oregon started pulling away, you also had USC Arizona, where USC ended up having a late lucky break there on fourth down with a little tip ball drill. But with the Pac-12 being back and them having to make this late push, what's going to happen for a Pac-12 team to make the playoffs?
I think whoever can come out of there undefeated, whoever can dominate, show, and I think it's. If I had to pick a team, I would think it's Oregon. How Oregon has looked and how good they've looked. It's really surprising to see Oregon. I mean, the last three quarterbacks in there almost have coming out like this. Justin Herbert, how he just came out this year. Now they have a new quarterback in there, and they're look like they haven't dropped anything, and they're still playing really good. But I think they will have the best chance if they can just play out and go undefeated and win. Um, and I think in the Pac-12 in the conference championship, if they can dominate their opponent, I think they have to be a team to be looking at to get into the playoffs.
Huh?
I agree. I think the biggest Pac-12 team that is Oregon for sure. I guess Washington, not really. I don't think. But I take that Oregon. I take Oregon, Notre Dame, and Florida. Put them all in the same little 10 right there. I think it could be a toss up between any of those three teams. Notre Dame's definitely getting tested a little bit more, I think, than the other two. But I think I think the top three, Alabama, Ohio State. I don't think that's going to change. Even with Indiana going against Ohio State. But I could easily see Oregon being a Pac-12 team to sneak in this year. They've been known to do it before. Not as recently, but they've done it. We were talking about what? Huh?
Go ahead.
No, you're good.
I'm just I don't know if the Pac-12. I think what's going to hurt Oregon is the strength of schedule, right? The Pac-12 just isn't a dominant conference that you see with the SEC. I don't even think the Big Ten is a very dominant conference this year. I think Big 12 is playing pretty well, and then you got two teams being strong in the ACC. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. I think Oregon's best chance of getting in is still going to have to be, like USC going undefeated, and then Oregon and USC having a good game in the Pac-12 championship game. I think that's the only thing that gives them a chance. If they're going against a weak USC team, which has come up lucky the last 2 weeks against Arizona and Arizona State, then I don't think their strength of schedule is going to be enough to be able to pull them into the talks for the playoffs. not with everything that's going on in the other one. So, um,
And that's like go back to what you said. That's what I'm saying. But I'm also saying I think they'll need more. I think they need to go out there and dominate the Pac-12 and just show. Yeah, maybe their conference is bad, but we're just running over teams. So we're not even in these conversations. So far, they've shown that. But I mean, there's only 6 games for them this season, and if they can just roll over the teams, I think it shows them a better chance than having these close games like UFC has had.
Yeah, what they don't need to give up 29 points against Washington State like they did yesterday. That's not. I mean, they won 43-29, but you can't if you're trying to get a playoff position, you can't give up 29 points to Washington State. I mean, especially if you're floating out there with their ranked 11th right now. That's not where you want to be. They really need to hunker down, do what Matthew said, really start blowing out some teams and handle it. And I'm getting really solid wins.
agreed. So then looking at it as we're getting closer here with less than a month left in the season here, what is the one team outside the current top 4 that you think can make a run to the playoffs?
I'll go. I said it last week. I still believe Florida. Florida, to my mind, is a team that I can see getting in. They have a quality win. They just had a really good win over Georgia. This offense from Florida is legit, and I can see them getting in, especially if they end up running the East and taking on Alabama and end up beat Alabama in the conference championship. I definitely see them hopping into the college playoffs.
Charlie?
I agree with Matthew on a lot of that. I think Florida would be the most competitive team that could crack that top 4. I'd hate to see it, but I could see Texas A&M sliding in there. But I just don't think they'd be competitive in a playoff game. I mean, they got beat twice over by Alabama when they played them, and yeah, that was a bit earlier in the season. They've had some really good games since then. But I personally would just hate to see them make that playoff spot because I think it'd be a waste, and I'd rather see Florida in it. But I don't know. I don't know why I have this feeling like they would choose like Texas A&M had a better odds.
Early I said Texas A&M. I thought was going to be the team that would sneak in. They were my dark horse early. It's just a matter of seeing what ends up happening with the rest of their schedule. I think that you can't overlook Florida, but at the same time, if they don't beat Alabama in the SEC championship game, then they're not going to make it there. And I think that has a lot to do with it. Obviously, with the way with what's going to go down in Notre Dame, Clemson, there in the conference championship, because it's looking like it's going to be heading that way. It'll be interesting to see what the committee ends up doing between those two. But also, I don't think you can sleep on Cincinnati. I think Cincinnati has a viable chance of being the very first non-Power 5 team to make the playoffs. I mean, they're beating their opponents by an average of 29 points. They, once again, same thing we were talking about with Oregon, they can't control who's in their conference. They can control what they're doing, and what they're doing is absolutely dominating the American Conference. I mean, they just beat East Carolina 55-7, and what Coach Houston's doing down there is building a good program. But it is, I think they're the ones that I would love to be able to see slide in there. I don't think Miami's been playing very well here of late. I don't know if they can find their way in. If Texas A&M and Florida can't beat Alabama, it'll be interesting. Can they slide in there and get 2 SEC teams in? But like I said, keep your eye on Cincinnati.
I do say this: there's another team to throw out there if somehow this starts getting messy with Ohio State dropping losses. If, like, let's say Florida beats Alabama, Clemson, Notre Dame, like if all of these teams just start losing near the end, it would be Cincinnati. I would be throwing up there, but the other one is Coastal Carolina too. I was like, if all these big teams starts falling and Coastal ends up being undefeated like where they are right now, 7-0, are you throwing? They might, or the playoff committee might be throwing Coastal in there. So
You're starting to sound like me now.
I
I've
was
been talking about Coastal for the last 2 weeks. I'd love to
Mhm.
see Coastal Carolina get in there. I think Jimmy Chadwell's built an unbelievable program over there of late, and I think he can do some damage. But they're winning some big games. I just don't know if they're winning them like Cincinnati's winning them.
Yep.
I was just about to ask if you think Coastal Carolinas should be ranked as high as they are.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I tell you what, we go back to talk about. I like Cincinnati being the Bearcats. They've both basketball and football. They've been building a good program the last couple of years here. They've been sneaking in there, and but I want to go back to Texas A&M and Florida. I mentioned that Florida did lose to Texas A&M by 3 points the week after Texas A&M lost to Alabama. And I want to think about. Do you think that loss that Florida had was means that they're a worse team, or do you think Texas A&M just after getting smacked in the mouth came out a little bit more passionately and was able to pull that one off?
I mean, I think Texas A&M's a very viable, legit team. And also in the time now where you're having to deal with all these COVID restrictions and COVID protocols, not knowing who you're going to get to play with week to week, it makes it interesting. But it's just a matter of, I don't think you can take 3 teams out of SEC. But it'll be interesting. I do think that there's a good chance 2 of them will probably end up being in there. And what about Kyle Trask? That dude has been absolutely killing it there for Florida. I mean, I think he's in the running for the Heisman. He's probably one of my favorites to win it.
And don't forget about Kyle Pitton. I think the best tight end right now in NCAA.
And you saw how many points they put up yesterday without him. I mean, absolutely dominant of a team. I think their biggest issue is their defense. You can't try to outscore everybody with dominant offenses. At some point in time, you got to put some stops, and they're just not putting stops together right now. So,
and I think going to your point, Charlie, with Florida, like Ryan said, I agree. Just dominant offensively and defense, they do have their struggles, but the toughest thing they're gonna have to accomplish going forward is when you're going against this team like Texas A&M that has Jimbo Fisher on it. When you have go against these great coaches like Nick Saban, just like I can go down some more. They're going to game plan to your weaknesses, and that's what Texas A&M they played toward their strengths that were Florida's weakness. And it's just that can you overcome your weakness to make it to a point where it's not going to be going to hurt you, and they can just overcome it. Can the defense just hang on for the offense of just carrying them? That's how I see it.
When was the last time Florida had a Heisman Trophy winner?
I believe it was Tim Tebow.
Mm-hmm.
That was their last championship year.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think? Now let's do this. Let's say the top 4 end up being Alabama, Clemson, Alabama, Ohio State, and Florida. Okay. What do you think about Florida against Clemson? How those teams mash up?
I don't think Florida's defense can hold up against a healthy Clemson offense. I mean, with Trevor Lawrence at the helm and ETN back there going to it, I just don't think that Florida's defense because here's the difference between Florida and Clemson, right? Florida is outscoring everybody because their offense is just that much better than the people that they're going against. The reason they lost to Texas A&M is because Texas A&M has a legit offense too, and they ended up getting into a shootout with them. And you can't get into a shootout with a healthy Clemson and expect to win. Their offense is too explosive, too good, and even more importantly, their defense is going to make enough critical stops to put you into stressful situations. I think if both teams are fully healthy going at it. I just don't think that Florida or even Texas A&M can hang with Clemson. I mean, I don't even think Clemson can, or a healthy Clemson. Sorry, I don't think Notre Dame can even handle a healthy Clemson either. It's just they're a different team. But at the same time, with COVID up in the air, you never know what's going to happen.
Oh, that's what I mean. Clemson's been making a lot of simple mistakes in the last couple weeks. A lot of stupid fouls. I mean, I
They're
don't
playing
know
with a lot of young guys. I mean, they're missing two guys on their D line. They're missing their starting linebacker. They're missing a safety. They obviously don't have the best quarterback in the country. I mean, they're playing with a lot of guys that they haven't relied on as of yet, and so I think it's to be expected. Once again, we're in a COVID world. It's going to be interesting to see who has who when it does get important. And then at the same time, when they end up going down, when they start getting ready for these bowl games, how does the NCAA handle it? Because now you have players that are out of class already. Do they bring them down 2 weeks earlier to do a little quarantine deal so they can try to make sure that both teams are fully healthy? How does the NCAA handle the playoffs along with the national championship game? Because, like I said, it is a time when schools are out of session. You can do things like that.
And who pays for it? Do you think these schools? I don't think these schools are going to want to give up 2 weeks of hotel fee for 50 players and a coaching staff of 20.
I think it'd be by the bowl committee.
I mean,
they already give them ridiculous gifts.
Mm-hmm.
Might as well give them a place.
Do we have this? Do we have all the bowls this year, or do you think they pare them down?
I think they still have all the bowls.
Yeah. And I also think it goes by how the season plays out until when it starts getting closer. If there's more games canceled cases. So at the moment, I think like Brian, it's going to be they're going to try to play as many bowls. So we move into.
Let me ask you this question.
What's it? Oh, yep.
Let me ask you this here, right? So then we talked about what team outside the top four ends up making the playoffs. What team inside the top four right now do you see getting knocked out of the top four and not making the playoffs? Go ahead, Charlie.
I hate to say it, it's just because the last couple of years they've been the ones that have been booted the easiest. Ohio State makes one mistake, they're out. I think Clemson makes a mistake, Alabama makes a mistake, they can hold on to a fourth spot. But I think if Ohio State makes one mistake, they're done. That's how it's been the last 2 of the last 4 years. I mean, that loss to Iowa in November a couple years ago, they kept it out of the playoffs, and it shouldn't. I don't think it should have. I mean, that they are all, out of those 3 teams, they're the ones that they make the slightest mistake, the first one's gone.
And I can see your mistake. I can see where you're coming from with Ohio State, but this Ohio State is a lot different. Very more mature team. Ryan Day, another year under his belt. This Ohio State team though is full around. I think the most packaged team next to you can say Clemson, Alabama, and Ohio State has played fairly flawless. The team I'm looking that might be bouncing is Northern Dane, although they just took down Clemson last week. Trevor Lawrence wasn't playing. How we're looking at it, these teams could be rematched in the ACC championship, and with Trevor Lawrence playing, if there's no COVID incidents, I can see Clemson beating Notre Dame and knocking them out of the playoffs.
Well, he asked what out of Notre Dame, Alabama, and Ohio State, which one of those teams do you think has the best odds of missing the playoffs?
Notre Dame.
No, I didn't say. He didn't say Notre Dame. He said Clemson, Alabama, and Ohio State.
It's
I said all the top 4. Notre Dame's
yeah, top 4.
I forget the top.
Said in the top 4, who has the best chance of getting knocked out?
Yeah, I think it's more interesting to talk about the top. The 4th position isn't locked in yet by any means.
Yeah, I'm with you there, Matt. I think Notre Dame's the one that I think gets knocked out. Now, Charlie, to your point, you're right. If Ohio State ends up not winning the Big Ten, then we're not going to see a Big Ten team in the college football playoffs. I'll go ahead and put money on that. Like, Ohio State is the only team as of right now that can make the college football playoffs. But if they don't win the Big Ten, they don't get in. And I think that's because of the lack of strength within that conference that you have seen over the last couple of years. But I think Notre Dame, we're going to get a Notre Dame Clemson rematch in the ACC championship game. I think a healthy Clemson will show who they truly are against a solid Notre Dame team. But I think it's Notre Dame that's going to end up getting booted. I think you're going to be left with Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, and then that next team, whether it be Texas A&M, Florida, God willing, Cincinnati, somebody like that.
I will say this before we move on. You say there want to be a team. I can see one team that could make that leap into there would be Wisconsin if they finish out undefeated. They don't play Ohio State, but let's say they get into the conference championship and the one that knocks out Ohio State and gives them their first loss. You have to think that Wisconsin might jump up there into that fourth spot in the college playoffs.
I just don't think Wisconsin. Because you can't rank them off of Big Ten games. I mean, the Big Ten's been so inconsistent, especially this year when it comes to Michigan, Penn State, Michigan State. They're scheduled. I give them an opportunity to make it to the top four. I think hands down.
I agree with that, but like if they're running tables like Ohio State, and then they go and knock out Ohio State in the conference championship, it's like, how can you not put them?
Well,
it's not like I'm not saying they automatically get into college playoffs, but they should be one of the teams that are being thought of to be in that playoff spot because of how going undefeated and knocking out Ohio State, who everyone's considering to be winning or is predicting Ohio State Clemson college or national championship.
Fair enough, Matt. There definitely should be considered, but I think we talked about plenty of great teams that would be taking that spot today. I mean, even though it's Pac-12, I think Oregon's a good contender for that spot, more so than Wisconsin. I think the Bearcats are a bigger contender for that spot than Wisconsin. Texas A&M has a better chance for that spot than Wisconsin. So even though they should be considered, I don't think they're a serious candidate. Even though they are winning football games, they're not playing the right teams, and they're not, and they don't. And this team doesn't have the history, I don't think. They're not blowing anyone's mind either. They're winning by some big margins for sure. But I mean, does it really matter how much you beat Illinois? I mean, does it really matter how bad you beat Michigan this year? I don't really think it does.
You know, I want to comment in the chat from Richmond saying thinks that Florida could hang in Texas A&M. Doesn't think the Texas A&M could. You know, I could agree with that. I think Florida does have a better chance than Texas A&M moving forward. Even though Texas A&M has that win over Florida, it's just a matter of how can each team finish. I mean, we didn't get to see a lot of SEC games this week, which was interesting. And how's that going to be made up moving forward? It's just it's unlike anything we've ever seen with everything going on. Makes things extremely interesting. I think that the thing that Texas A&M has going for them is that they've got LSU, who's been absolute trash. They have Auburn that is somehow ranked 24th when their play is maybe not trash, but it's a garbage bag. And then Tennessee, which has been falling off here lately. So Texas A&M's best bet is to just go undefeated the rest of the way. And then if Alabama beats Florida, Texas A&M's in. I mean, that's my whole thought right here. If the Florida-Alabama SEC championship game happens, if Florida wins, then you're having two teams from the SEC. If Florida loses, Texas A&M is the best chance to be able to make that very next push for an SEC team. And while we're on that topic, BuckHeels, thank you for the subscription. So, Matt, why don't you go ahead and take us into next week's college games?
All right. Going right into what we were just talking about, Ohio State. Indiana visits Ohio State. Charlie, what's the chances of Indiana coming up with an upset?
I'm gonna say not high, but I want to put it out of reach. I mean, like I said, Ohio State's played 3 games this year. They've shown pretty well in them, but they just missed a game yesterday, so they're gonna have another week there. And with young teams, you never really know how a week off like that's going to affect them. But I think the odds are Ohio State pulls this one out by 2 touchdowns.
Brian.
I'll say that I think Indiana has close to, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt and say maybe 6-7% chance of winning. Like I said, they're a solid team. They're not Ohio State. Nobody in the Big Ten, unless Ohio State just absolutely forgets to show up, Justin Fields goes down with COVID, whatever it may be, they're going undefeated this year within that conference, unless they just, forget to get on the bus.
Yeah, I'm not gonna disrespect Indiana to saying they're gonna get blowed out, but I mean it's one game. They always talk about anything can happen, but if this game's playing 10 times, 9 out of 10, I think Ohio State's winning, and just the error of or just like the margin of how Indiana they would have to play their most perfect games, and hope Ohio State comes out struggling, makes mistakes. Just all that has to fall for Indiana, and I just don't see that happening. How fundamental, how good this Ohio State team has looked with their season so far. So moving on, we'll go to Wisconsin at Northwestern. Um,
I'll go ahead and start this one off if you're
all
good.
right, yeah, that's fine.
I think I've always been a fan of Wisconsin and what they've done in the run game. Obviously that dominant win that they had over Michigan yesterday, 49-11. It was a lot of fun to see the old pro power I, especially when you get down to the goal line, packing as many people as they can in between the hashes, and then just running straight down your throat and challenging you to see who's more manly. I love to see all that. I think Northwestern is a solid team, but here's the thing, right? They're finding a way to win with an entire team that looks like Pat Fitzgerald. I mean, legit though, their entire team looks like their coach. They look like a bunch of average Joes, but they're going out there and finding a way to win. I think they're a good team, but we don't know how good Purdue is right now at 2-1. But traditionally, if you're beating Purdue by 7 points, something's going wrong. If you're going to be a contender in the Big Ten, you better be spanking them to be able to move forward. I think Wisconsin's going to prove too much of a challenge for Northwestern and just overwhelm them. But I say that even though Maryland is a solid team, and Northwestern beat them by 43-3, and I think Maryland's been playing extremely well this year. So they could show up and surprise us all, but I just think Wisconsin is going to be the dominant force in the game.
Charlie?
I think Wisconsin has it. You bring up that Maryland game, but I would have to bring up the Iowa game. I mean, if you want to, like I said, if you want to be a dominant force in this league, you cannot be beating Iowa. But even though Iowa has been known to agitate Big Ten team, and they have been known to steal a victory here or there over the years, you can't beat them by 1 point, and you can't beat Purdue by 7. I mean, and even Nebraska, they had the only blowout win they had was was against Maryland, and I think Wisconsin is just a stronger team. I think they're a faster team. They're a stronger team, and I think they're a smarter team. And I think they win that game decisively.
I think Wisconsin will pull out a victory, but for me, it comes down to Nebraska. Can their defense slow down this Wisconsin team that's been averaging 47 points a game this season? So if for Nebraska, they got to keep this game close. They can't let this go high scoring, because I don't think Northwestern has the power scoring, like the offensive power that Wisconsin. So they can't go head to head in offense like that. But if the defense can keep the score down, I would say in 20s, and just play really good defense and turn the ball over and force Wisconsin into bad decisions. I think they could come out with a victory, but that's a lot asking take this Wisconsin offense to try to take them out of their game.
Agreed. Well, let's continue on to the next game. Big rivalry down in Oklahoma with Oklahoma versus Oklahoma State. Matt, you want to start off talking with this?
Yeah. At the beginning of the season, I thought Oklahoma was going to be that was it fourth quarterback coming in, looking good. But after their first loss, Spencer kind of bounced back, and I see if Spencer can control the ball, that's the big thing because he struggled at first with turnovers. I believe they can take out Oklahoma State. It just comes to taking care of the ball for me. Like I talked about the Wisconsin, Oklahoma have had turned the ball over and has struggled with that. But for Oklahoma State, they can say that turn the ball over, but I think hold the possession. You know how Oklahoma has always had a weak defense and they're always with strong offense. Oklahoma State, I think the time of possession is the big key for them. Keeping Spencer off the field, keeping that offense off the field as much as possible is going to be the huge key for them.
I would agree. I think the key for victory for Oklahoma State is to get Hubbard downhill. I think he can be the difference in this game. I think if you can get him solid running, and really put a lot of stress on the Oklahoma team. I mean, you beat Oklahoma by keeping their offense off the field, like you said. And how do you keep an offense off the field? You have to run the ball. Because when you're out there throwing it, a lot of times you're not getting clocked. A lot of times you're working sidelines. You have to run the ball if you want to run clock, and that's what's gonna. I think that's what's gonna take to beat Oklahoma. Now, don't get me wrong, Oklahoma State's offense is extremely talented, and they're gonna sling it because I mean that's what they do. But at the same time, I think that's got to be the biggest difference for them. Charlie?
Well, I gotta say one thing with both these teams: they're very consistent with how they play against teams that are ranked near them or ranked away. If they're blowing out a team, it's because they're not as good. If they're barely beating a team, it's because they're right there next to them. So I mean, consistency there is going to prove that it's going to be a good competitive game. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. And not like both these teams made fun of Kansas, and I don't think it's going to be anything close to that. I would have to tip my hat to the Cowboys, but I mean I wouldn't count the Sooners out. I think it's going to be an exciting game. I think they're going to go back and forth for a while, and I could see it being within 7-point margin. Really.
Yeah, I think it'll be close for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go ahead and flip it over. We're here at about the hour mark. Let's go ahead and talk about the NFL and what's going on there. The Colts-Titans game on Thursday night started off really tight before Indianapolis started pulling away. Matt, what do you think made the difference to hold Tennessee to 17 points?
I think the biggest I'll start in the first half. I mean, Colts came out playing really good. Their first 4 drives, 10 or more plays. But they end up in only scoring 6 points in those 4 drives with 2 field goals, and they end up turning the ball over twice and just struggling to finishing those drives. But these Tennessee Titans, they've been struggling lately the last 3 games. And I think Colts knew that. So putting Rivers in the no huddle, controlling the offense, took advantage of this defense, Titans defense, that has lacked a pass rush. So when you're not especially Tennessee, when you're not rushing a quarterback like Phillip Rivers or some of these great elite quarterbacks, and you're letting them sit in that pocket, you're going to struggle, especially if you're not getting pressure. Because I'm say these 37-year-old Phillip Rivers, if I bet you he's not going to be liking it, taking hits on him. And the biggest thing in the second half that I saw, the Titans, their special teams. We saw them lose the Pittsburgh Steelers, and those special teams that end up losing them that game. They struggled again. They had their third different punter in 3 games Thursday night. The one point in the third quarter, he shanks a punt. I think it was 16 yards. Colts get on the 30 and end up converting it with a touchdown. And then the next possession, Titans goes a punt, and the Colts block and returns for a touchdown. So that's 14 points swinging right there just because of special teams. And to put the cherry on the top, I mean, down double digits, and then Stevens comes out to miss a 44-yard field goal that would have cut the lead to 1 score. So if he made that field goal, as a Titans, you have to think that, hey, we're still in this game. When we get the ball back, we can go up and tie it. So just the defense not being able to get pressure on Phillip Rivers and the special teams once again hurting this team really hurt the Titans, I want to say, in this game. And I want to make I don't know if you knew, shout out Phillip Rivers. He passed Dan Marino for 5th most passing yards in NFL from Thursday night also.
You know, Matt, to your point, what about very near the end of the game? Ryan Tannehill staying strong in the pocket, throws a heave up to A.J. Brown, and it goes right through A.J. Brown's hands as he beats the defender and could have walked in for a touchdown. I think at that point in time, it was a 27-17 game. That could have made it 24, or sorry, 26 or something like that. But I think Tennessee I think they're making a lot of dumb mistakes. They're hurting themselves. I mean, they're a solid team. Especially when you have Derrick Henry still doing what he's doing. Now, granted, he ran for over 100 yards and didn't have a touchdown in the game.
But they 19 possessions. They kept Derrick Henry to 5.5 yards per possession. That defense, I mean, a regular running back, 5.5 yards possession is not bad. But Derrick Henry, that's not where he wants to be. So you have to give kudos to that Colts defense.
I mean, Charlie, I think you take anybody in the league at 5.5 yards per carry.
Derrick Henry, though, I mean, this guy was the leading rusher last year in the NFL. I mean, this guy was. I think in 19 possessions, Derrick Henry in a game like this, you're gonna, especially when your special teams are making the mistakes that they were. I think you're gonna want.
See, I go the other way. I think Derrick Henry did everything he should have. I think you put the pressure on Ryan Tannehill. I mean, he threw for 147 yards. Now, granted, that's not on him. He was getting stroked left and right by a very good Colts defense. I mean, in my opinion, I think the number 1 defense in the league. But the only receiver with more than 2 catches was Corey Davis. And you ended up having a bunch of other guys missing opportunities. We talked about A.J. Brown missed an opportunity. I know Cameron Batson missed an opportunity. And you just kind of look at those deals. I think Derrick Henry did everything he needed to do. Like I said, I'll take any guy in the league, any day of the week, any league, NFL, college, high school, middle school, that's averaging 5 yards a carry. You're averaging 5 yards a carry, you're a dude. And I mean, Derrick Henry is right now – as of right now, is leading the league in rushing. I mean, you're probably going to see Dalvin Cook end up taking that lead after they end up playing today, as long as he hits the 100-yard mark like he has been. But, I mean, Derrick Henry's still number 1 in the league. I don't know if I can necessarily put that on him. I'll put it on the offensive line for the Titans more than anybody.
I definitely don't put that on him for the game. There's a lot more at stake there. Now, what do you guys think about what Michael Pittman Jr. did did in that game? I mean, he rushed. He had a 20-yard rush, and then he had over 100 yards receiving, I think. Let me see. Yeah, he had 101 yards receiving on 7 receptions. The only person it seemed like was actually moving the ball with some consistency, doing 28 yards rushing.
I mean, yeah, he had an incredible game, and it's just his impact, especially as this year as a rookie, has a makes it looks like the Colts can definitely have a number two with Tyler or Hilton with Tyler Hilton and making a Colts definitely a not just a one receiver, just having two impact players. But I want to go back to the what Brian said with the Tennessee, like the offense. Yeah, they didn't. You can blame Tannehill with his struggles, but I think the biggest thing is what have we known about Philip Rivers in his 17-year career? He throws interceptions. And I think the biggest key came down the Titans' defensive line. This line has not put pressure on quarterbacks, and when you put pressure on Philip Rivers, he's gonna make mistakes. That's one thing he's known for his career, and I'm just wanna if this defensive line could have got after it like they did last year. This defensive line is not playing like they did last year, and that did come down to the Colts, the Tennessee struggles. I want to say just not putting this offense in horrible field position also hurt them.
Well, I think last year that offensive line was a bit that defensive line was a bit underestimated, especially at the beginning of the year. I mean, that Browns Titans game to open the year, no one thought that they were going to be able to shut down Baker the way they did. You know, I mean, yeah, the Browns had a pretty flimsy offensive line last year, but I mean, I still think last year they had the advantage of surprise a little bit.
Yeah, but when you add Clowney in the into your defensive line, you're expecting the former number one pick in the draft. You're expecting to make big. Even if he's not bringing sacks, he's not the type of person that's going to get a lot of sacks, but he will bring a lot of pressure. And so they thought that was going to help their defensive line this year, and it just hasn't done anything, and it's hurt them against the Colts because Philip Rivers, like I said, when he has time back there, he'll pick you apart. So.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and go on to the games that are going to be happening today. Let's start off. You have the struggling 2-6 Texans going into Cleveland to face the Browns coming off a bye week there. That have been, let's just say, they look a little different without Odell Beckham Jr. back there. But at the same time, you had Baker Mayfield throw for 5 touchdowns against Cincinnati without him. Ended up looking like he could be the first round pick that they selected there a couple years ago. He struggled against the Raiders. I think he ended up throwing for close to 150 yards in a very windy game. Charlie, what are your thoughts on this game there since you're wearing the brown shirt?
Well, they get Chubb back this week, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
They get and Wyatt Teller. So I think with Chubb back, Kareem Hunt, I think you just pound and you pound and you pound on that Texans team, and then you got some guys that can make some plays on the outside if you need to if you need to get rid of the ball here and there. But I say they're just going to run it down their throat all day. I don't know what the final score is going to be, but there's going to be about 300 rushing yards in Cleveland today, I feel.
I mean, this Browns have, missing Baker last week because of being out on the COVID list. But like I said, I agree with Charlie. Chubb's coming back. I'm excited to see how this Browns team look. I know Odell Beckham out for the season was a blow. But when you have your 1-2 running back force, it's good. I'm excited to see how they bounce back this week.
And you still got Jarvis. I mean, it's not like they're.
Yep.
Here's the thing that I think is going to be interesting to see. You know, the Texans last year gave up a sack every 12 snaps. This year, they're tied for 24th in sacks given up. That offensive line is struggling. Last week, Deshaun Watson was the leading rusher with 50 yards. Okay, that offensive line is terrible. I mean, terrible. They can't run the ball. They can't protect Deshaun Watson. And who does Cleveland have on the other side of the ball? All right.
Miles
I
Garrett.
hear they got a
Miles
pretty good guy.
Garrett, who is making a push to be the defensive player of the year. I mean, the dude is on an absolute tear. So you have one of the best pass rushers off the edge in the league right now, going against one of the worst offensive lines in the game. I think Miles Garrett will go off today. I think he's walking away with at least 2 sacks and could even go for more than that. But I just don't think the Texans can hold up. Now, here's the great thing, though, right? What has been Cleveland's biggest weak point this year? Their secondary. And so if the Texans can find a way to protect Deshaun Watson, I think the Texans can have a pretty good game, but I just don't think that they can hold up long enough to protect him. Even if they're going to use 6, 7 guys in the pass protection, I just don't see it happening. Because if you're only running 3 guys out there on routes trying to use max protect to help yourself out, I don't know if it's going to be enough with what Cleveland has up front.
I think it's really going to come down to how well Watson can scramble. Because you see with that Ravens team and with that Steelers team, the Browns were able to get in their face. You know, get in Big Ben's face and Deshaun Watson's face. Not Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Jackson's face. I'm saying out. But I think it's
You're right the first time.
Okay, I think it's how they're gonna be able to play on the run. I mean, because Miles Garrett's gonna get back there. You know, every third play or every other play he's gonna be hands in the face.
I'll go back and saying that this is a game that you're looking at Texans having some turmoil. Lately they've been playing well, but I think it comes down the Browns with Odell, this offense with Odell out of the lineup. They're still a good offensive team, but it comes down to I look at this team kind of like how the Vikings offense is. It's based on this running game, and they have 2 dominant running backs. Chubb's coming back now, and Hunt back there. Baker just needs to take care of the ball. They need to run the ball with play action, and they don't need Baker to try to do too much, because if he can just follow the game plan and just play his game and not forcing stuff, this Browns offense it'll take care of the rest.
Well, especially when you look and say Houston has one of the worst rushing defenses in the league right now. You get one of the best back in your backfield. It's going to be rough. But you know, if we're going to talk about the keys to victory, here's the keys to victory. Right? If the Texans, or I think of the underdogs in this, if they're going to win, the 2 things they have to do is they have to stop Nick Chubb and they have to stop Miles Garrett.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't do those things, nothing else matters.
Even if they stop Nick Chubb, though, I mean, Kareem Hunt was only putting up 15 less yards a game than Nick Chubb was.
Yeah.
I mean,
You got to stop the run. If you can't stop the run as the Texans right now, you're in for a long day.
I'm just saying, Nick Chubb was the leading rusher in the league last year till Kareem Hunt got activated. I mean,
yep. Well, let's keep moving on. Let's look at. I know all 3 of us are going to be watching this matchup. All right. We got the 6-3 Bucks, who just got shellacked by the Saints last week, going against the Panthers, who have lost 4 straight, but all 4 have been extremely tight, close games. Coming into Charlotte, Matt, what are your keys to victory here?
Before I get to my keys, I want to put out an issue that I have with the NFL. What kind of scheduling is it for the Carolina Panthers to play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers twice after the Saints? Twice. It's like I'm just.
Well, why did they leave this? Why did most years we play the Saints twice in December? I don't know.
I mean, I'll take that over playing Tampa twice after playing the Saints. I mean, before getting the keys, I mean, it's going to be it's going to be hard for Carolina because one thing Tom Brady has done in his career, he's 7-1 against games after losing big like this. He's 7-1 coming back the next week and winning. So I mean, it's just going to be hard. But I look at this game like how they played the Chiefs. Um, Although they didn't control the Chiefs' offense of scoring down. Um, but this Panthers defense is still young. They're still playing together, trying to in the new system. The biggest keys for the Panthers, I want to say, is trying because it's going to be hard to contain this Bucks offense with all these weapons they have. Is trying to keep this defense just from explosive plays. Don't let the explosive plays. Don't let Tom throw it deep. And I think they just need to be able to not let the explosive plays and trying to keep the score down. For offensively, this offense been really good so far. I loved seeing what McCaffrey coming back was, but I know McCaffrey's out. The biggest thing for this offense is time possession. If you're going to keep an explosive team from scoring, you need control of the offense, the possession, and that's from running and having a good running game with Mike Davis. Now this defense, this front seven is very nasty, and they're gonna, after having this horrible game, they're gonna try to get bounced back and get pressure on Teddy. But I think if anything, the Panthers could do is play action and take advantage of this secondary from the Bucks. That is probably the weakest spot on this team.
Well, I didn't know if you guys saw one thing. The Bucks, they had mechanical problems yesterday, and they didn't get to land to about midnight last night in Charlotte. And having some older players like Gronk and having older players like Brady is not always the best thing you want. They're supposed to get there by 2 p.m. So I don't know if that's gonna have an effect, but it's definitely something that I saw earlier and I remembered. But I mean, I guess the biggest things is today. Keys to victory for the Panthers would be their Shaq Thompson. He's gonna have to be active. Is he playing today?
Yes.
Yeah, he's gonna have to make some moves. He's gonna have to, especially being where he is at linebacker. He's gonna have to make sure Tom Brady and Gronk don't get going. Because I think after Matthew mentioned that Tom Brady's 7-1 after a big loss. I think after a big loss last week against the Saints, he's going to try to rely on some people that he knows well to get the ball moving early, to get some repetitions in. So our linebackers are going to have to protect that middle of the field there. Because I think Gronk's going to be doing those 10 and ends, same way that they beat Kansas City 2 years ago in the AFC Championship game. I think Christian McCaffrey's back this week.
No,
he got hurt at the end of last week, and he'll be out with a shoulder this week.
Yeah, they ruled him out.
That's a good question. Do you bring him back at all this year after a second injury? But
well, I think he would have came back, but I think the Panthers are taking the chance of let's not risk our future star.
They better have learned, but offensively, I mean, I'm not really. Panthers offense right now. I mean, they're getting things done, but I mean, there's not extreme consistency anywhere. I
mean, what are you talking about? There's not extreme consistency anywhere. They're in the top 5 in the passing in passing in the league. They have been killing it. They have the #1 passing duo in the league between Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore. Teddy Bridgewater has been on a tear when he has time to sit back there and throw it when they're able to get a good run game, because a lot of that does come off of play action, like we talked about with the Browns. Because they've missed Christian McCaffrey, you've allowed Teddy Bridgewater to really stand out and show what kind of quarterback that he can be. And I think a big part of what's going to happen is you're going to have to get Mike Davis going. I think he's going to have a really good game to be able to take pressure off of it, because, the Tampa Bay Bucks showed that they have some issues on defense. They showed it last week, and you got to take advantage of it.
Top-ranked defenses in the league, though, so you got to keep that in mind.
I understand that. I think, so if I'm going to talk about my keys to victory, here's them right here. What did the Saints do, okay, to shut down this Buccaneers offense? Got pressure on Tom Brady. When they got pressure on Tom Brady, they struggled. Now the Panthers have been extremely weak in the run game this year. Okay, that's part of having young players. They I think they have a lot of excitement there. The one person I haven't heard about is if Jeremy Chin is coming back or not this week.
I want to say,
Not sure.
I think I got to think that he was active, if I remember.
Okay, I know Dante Jackson's active. I know Gross Matos is active. But here's the thing: the Panthers have been struggling in the run game
Yeah,
on defense. We all know that.
Jeremy Chin has been active, been named active today.
But what the Panthers need to do is they got to get that pass rush going. Brian Burns has got to get going early. Gross Matos has got to get going early. Derek Brown has to make some impact on the inside. But having Jeremy Chin back in the lineup helps in a lot of different ways. That guy does everything for him. I mean, they lock him up in man coverage. They use him as a linebacker. They even have this crazy Tampa 2 look where he starts off as a linebacker and he's running back to the middle of the field from the slot. They're bringing him off the edge. That dude is a multi-tool that honestly I thought Isaiah Simmons was going to be that guy, but they found a way to get Derek Brown and their version of Isaiah Simmons and Jeremy Chin, who's actually played more snaps than Simmons has. And I think that the Panthers stand a good chance if they can get pressure on Tom Brady. The problem is the Saints done pissed off one of the best that's ever done it. And that's where the issue is going to come in is can you contain a pissed off, motivated, extremely talented Bucs offense?
And we haven't even thrown in that his coach threw him under the bus again so that's more motivation.
A struggle. All right, let's go on. We got a matchup of two first round rookie quarterbacks facing each other today with the 2-6 Chargers going into the very hot 5-3 Miami Dolphins. Where did this Miami team come from this year? I think it's going to be very interesting. The Chargers have the number 2 offense in the league right now. They're the number 5 in passing. They've had a lot of close games. I don't think I've ever seen anybody lose this consistently. I mean, last week they lost on a replay, but at the same time, you have the Miami Dolphins defense, which is a top-tier defense in the league this year, the number 4 in turnovers. Matt, I know you're going to say this is a game of two young quarterbacks. I would argue to say this is going to be a game of one of the best offenses in the league going against one of the best defenses in the league. In my mind, I think that's what's going to determine this. I think the winner of this game will either be the Chargers offense or the Dolphins defense. However, like we talked about last week, they still have yet to really unleash Tua. They keep they're protecting them. So, Matt, what are your takes here on this game?
I agree. Like I said, the big headline is these two quarterbacks because Herbs and Tua. Just because they're both 116, 117 in the pick. That's just going to be the big headline. But like I said, I agree with you. The biggest thing is going to be Justin Herbert and the Chargers offense versus this Miami defense, who this defense has looked incredible. They turn the ball over and they lead defensively points scored. For me, the big key is how can Justin keep not turn the ball over to this Miami team that has turned over everyone. We just saw what they did 2 weeks ago to the Rams, and we've seen them how they played against the Arizona Cardinals. But for me, I want to see Tua. We've seen back to back weeks them letting him take more control of this offense. I'm very excited what they'll do against this his third week playing. But I'll go back to the one thing that is really hard to see this 2-6 Chargers team, although they have lost in close games, they've had double-digit leads and just blown them. And it's just hard to see. It's like I love Anthony Lynn, and I hope this doesn't jeopardize his job because I think him and Justin Herbert has something going that could be a good career for him in the next couple of years, and this Chargers team has a lot going for him. But like I said, it goes like going falling. It gets to Herbert. How can Herbert play against his defense? And I think if he can take care of the ball and not turn it over, that's going to be the key.
Oh, one thing I want to say is last week the Dolphins allowed Kyle Murray to rush 106 yards. And Justin Herbert, he is not. It's not unknown for him to run the ball a little bit. He runs about 5 times a game, and he's consistently getting 5 to 7 yards. So that's one thing. If I'm Miami, I'm gonna have to make sure I protect today because they did not do it last week. Outside of this, I think it's gonna be a fun game to watch. I'm gonna tip Miami, but I do like what you guys have been saying about the Cardinals. I mean the Chargers. I mean that team. Their average loss is like 4 points for the year, and Matthew's right. They are having leads in the games. I think this could be the game. They finally flip that switch and hold on to this leads, or it could be a couple more start next season. But I don't have much to say on it other than they make sure they keep Justin from running the ball, even though he can pass very well. You gotta get the pressure on him straight up the middle, you know.
The other question I have is, you look at the fantasy points, and the Chargers are giving up the 4th most fantasy points to quarterbacks. So, what can Tua do to take advantage of that? I mean, the guy has shown that he can scramble and get out of trouble, and he's shown that he has an elite arm. I can get it all over the place. I mean, he looks even better than he did at Alabama. I think him coming off this injury, he's gotten a lot stronger. He's had a chance to study the game a lot more. Again,
I said he's not throwing interceptions either. I mean,
and that's a key, right? If you're not turning the ball over, you always stand a chance. So, I think this is going to be a really good matchup. I think it's going to be one that ends up coming down to the wire. But I'm looking forward to what's going to happen. So, let me ask you this. I'm going to give each of you guys a chance to answer this. Who's going to end up having the bigger career, Herbert or Tua?
Tua.
Let's start with you.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
You can go, Charlie.
No,
Go ahead, Charlie. You say Tua. Why? Go ahead. Tell me why.
Well, one of the things is, I mean, Tua had some great college coaches. Obviously, he's been consistent since he's gotten in the league. He's not making as many little mistakes as a lot of first-year quarterbacks have been, and he's still learning. He's still learning how to play in the big leagues. But I mean, I think the guy just had some great coaches in college. I think that's shown well so far in his NFL career. He's with a young team, and they're tired of losing. And they're loving this guy, and he's loving them, and they're winning games with a team that no one really saw winning games that way, you know. And I think he has the momentum right now, and I think it's to continue. I think he's going to have a great career in the NFL, and I like Justin. I need to see Justin play another year before I really can make a decision on if he's going to be better or not.
I think I agree. I mean, for these two, we're just judging what we've seen so far. I mean, down in a couple seasons, we'll see how they start turning out. But just seeing right now, I have questions about Tua. Not trying to say that he's not talented, that he's not going to be amazing. The ceiling for him, there is no ceiling right now. We don't. The thing I think we're seeing Justin, how good he's looked. I think statistically, we haven't seen a quarterback do this coming in their rookie year. And for Tua, we're waiting to see more what he can do. But the thing about it is, I think the biggest thing I'm taking Herbert just because of Tua having a huge injury history, especially coming off a hip injury that was very potentially could have been a career injury. So I don't know, and that's what my only question is. I don't know how Tua can stay healthy and have that career of overcoming and maybe even have a longer career than Justin. So that's my only question I really have, and that's why I will
Even
take
with
who.
that, I mean, looking at one injury, I mean, the guy, it's not like he's been consistently hurt. He had one major injury. Now, that same injury ended up knocking Bo Jackson out for his career, but they're also two different positions. So I agree with you in that sense. I think everything you're saying is spot on. I just don't know if I bring up the injury up to this point in time since it was one fluke of an injury, and I have yet to see him get beat up and miss anything else.
Well, I will go back. He did have 5 notable injuries in his career. He broke his left index finger, sprained his right knee, dislocated like his right thing we were talking about. But I mean,
The finger came from throwing and bouncing off a helmet, and being left-handed.
and then he had a left
Through
high ankle sprain and a right high ankle sprain and the one, both the. So I mean, he's had 5 injuries in college, and like they said, when you're injured in college, you're going to be NFL or injured in NFL. So.
Those are all good points. Well, we need to keep moving on here. Let's go to this is probably one of my top matchups for the day. You have the 7-2 Bills going into the 5-3 Cardinals. We talked about the Chargers having the number 2 offense in the league. Well, the Cardinals have the number 1 offense in the league, but they're doing it a different way, right? The Chargers are throwing it everywhere. The Cardinals are running the ball, and that's how they end up pushing here. So. Charlie, what are your thoughts on this game with the Bills and the Cardinals?
I think it really comes down to Kyle Murray today. I mean, I guess you said they're running the ball, but I think the Bills, I don't think they have anything to prove today. They're playing football. They're playing solid football. They've shown that they're getting to this level over the last couple of years. So this is a team that's been building, and they've been doing it very well. I think they're going to continue to do exactly what they've been doing. And what's really to come down is how big of a day does Kyle Murray have? You know, if Kyle Murray can throw for 200 yards today and he can rush for 100 yards, I'm gonna give the Cardinals the edge in that. But if they're able to keep him in the pocket today and they're able to keep him from getting 50 plus yards and rushing, and they're able to keep him and like a QBR like 70%, then I think the Bills are just gonna continue to play solid football.
Go ahead, Matt.
I'm very interested in this matchup. This definitely is, I'd say, one of the 2 games that are going to be the most fun to watch. I think this one in Seattle and the Rams, and ultimately the Bills. They're 7-2. This proves this is another good team they're going to go against. Good quarterback in Murray. This shows that can they take out, win another big game and start showing as more of a Super Bowl contender as they were until they dropped those 2 big losses. But I've come down. If you look at it, the Bills to me is a more completed team. But this Cardinals offense is very explosive. Kyle Murray running the ball and stuff like that. So
they get Drake back today too.
Mm-hmm. But I think for me, I think for the Bills, it's just going to be very hard to control Murray. Murray just was a run for $150 over Miami, who we just talked about as a very good defense. But Hopkins and him really didn't have many targets last week, and I expect them to get back because that is a very scary duo. And I think with them and DK Metcalf and Russell, probably the 2 scariest duo quarterbacks we have right now. But I think it comes down to Buffalo's defense. If they containing Murray and seeing if this secondary can take away Hopkins.
See, I'm going to go the other way. I think it comes down to the Cardinals defense. You have the Buffalo offense, which right now, Kyle Allen, Josh Allen is number 3 in the league in passing yards. You have Diggs, who's the number 1 receiver in the league right now in passing yards. They have a very solid run game. Their defense has been playing very solid again. And, the Cardinals, who I thought were going to be a top defense in the league, are playing very mediocre. And so I think it's going to come down to – because I do think this is going to be a little bit of a shootout in the sense of I think both teams are probably going to end up scoring over 24, 30 points. I could easily see the final of this game being close to 42, 35, 38, 32, somewhere in there. But I think that's what, in my mind, what it's going to come down to is, can this Cardinals defense slow down this very explosive Bills offense enough to allow the Cardinals a chance? And we talk about Murray. The guy's been extremely electric. But at the same time, I think they need to run the ball better. I think they just from the ground game. And I'm not sure if they can do that against the Bills offense. Now, granted, where the Bills have been struggling is once again secondary. That's been their weak point moving forward, but at the same time, it's not like they're a bad secondary. Now, granted, you do have Josh Norman that's out this week. He tested positive for COVID, so they are going to be missing a top-tier Pro Bowl corner. But how does that help against a very stacked Cardinals receiving corps?
I agree. I would say this. I like what you mentioned about the Cardinals defense. I don't see them having in there. They're ranked one of the worst defenses in the league, but it's not even just that. That Bills team put 44 points up on Seattle's defense, and they're not a joke. They're not one of the top 5 or so. But, they're a good defense. They put 44 points up on them. Mm-hmm. And that Seattle's defense is, I think, it's a heck of a lot better than Arizona's.
Absolutely. Well, while we're here talking about them, both teams are making pushes to the playoffs. It looks like the Bills could end up taking the AFC East. You have the Cardinals in the matchup against a very talented NFC West. Who do you think is going to make the deeper run in the playoffs?
Bills.
Sorry.
No, Matt, you're good.
I'll let you finish real quick. You can go. I thought you were done. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, same reason I said earlier, is I think they have a more solid base. The Cardinals do have some good veteran players. They still got Larry down there. But I think that Bills team is just I think they've built the base of that team pretty solid. They do got some problems with their secondary, as Brian mentioned. But they're showing up. They lost a couple two silly games, but I think they go farther and deeper in the playoffs than Arizona. I think Arizona's going to be a one and done team this year, which is not to knock them by any means, but
if they make the playoffs.
Yeah. So I'm going to look at.
Still got to get the Ram and the Seahawks, which lead us into our next one, because you have the Rams at home against probably the MVP leading candidate, Russell Wilson. We talked about the Chargers having number 1, number 2 offense. Cardinals having the number 1 offense. Well, guess who has number 3 offense? It's the Seattle Seahawks. And they're doing it primarily in the air because they can't run the ball. But they're coming again against the number 2 defense in the league with the Rams. Number 5 in sacks. Of course, you have Aaron Donald back there, who I know you guys know is probably my favorite D lineman in the league right now. And it's just a matter of, what do you think is going to happen in this game? What do you think needs to happen in this game?
I'll start off. I'm going to say I think the Rams needed that. Coming off this bye week is going to be huge for the Rams. After that, Goff having a horrible game against Miami and just turning the ball over. It was more he was throwing it to Miami. But I've ran into the statistic. Do you know which player has the most sacks on Russell Wilson in his career? It's Aaron Donald by.
Bringing it up against this game and this week, I'm going to take a wild guess and say Aaron
I found
Donald.
It
this on
is.
the
It's Aaron Donald. He has sacked Russell Wilson the most. Now saying that he does face him twice, but this Rams front seven is very good. Like you said, they're fifth in sacks. But to me, we've seen it halfway through it. Seattle has a very good offense, but their defense, this defense, is a joke. They are I want to say I think they are the worst defense in the NFL. So for me, it's the Rams.
In passing.
In passing. For me, it's the Rams. We saw what they did to the Bears. They literally just stomped the Bears, and then they came out and then got stomped by Miami. What was the biggest thing? This offense turning the ball over. The offense just looked horrible. So for me, if the Rams defense can keep Russell and pressure him and get him uncomfortable, we've seen Russell try to force his hand and just put this team on his shoulder. And the last couple times, it's hasn't worked. We saw they got behind big, and this Rams offense, like I've mentioned earlier, just don't turn the ball over. You're going to have success against this Seattle defense because everyone else has. You just need to not turn the ball over, and I think for the Rams, just 3 and out. If you can get Russell 3 and out and not get started, I've always said that just don't let him get in his groove and start cooking. So.
Well, I mean, one of the biggest things for me to see in this game is the Rams, how they're going to be throwing the ball. I mean, they're one of the heaviest run-heavy teams in the league this year for sure. But I mean, it's if they're running the ball well and they can get the ball thrown, they can get the ball up in the air. I think they can have a really good day. I think this game's good. It means a lot to both teams being so close in the division here. But also Russell Wilson coming off of a double-digit loss, which is not a very common thing to him against Buffalo last week. It's gonna be real interesting. I mean, if they like I said, it's to me it comes down if the Rams can get the ball up in the air. If they can start making big plays like that, then it's going to go their way. And if they can't get their throwing game started, then I don't think the run game is going to be strong enough. Even though it is a pretty strong running game, but I mean their defense is definitely they're going to keep pressure on Russell Wilson, but Russell Wilson's also known to be falling out the pocket, falling out of the pocket with 2 guys on his ankles, and 1 guy on his left arm. He still can throw the ball 30 yards accurate. So
here's the thing that talked about the struggling Seahawks within the passing game, but they're still a top 5 rushing defense. And I still truly believe that the Rams, deep down in their core, are a rushing team. Now, granted, if I'm going against the Seahawks, I'm slinging it all over the place best I can, but I still think that they want to run the ball at their core. And so can they run the ball against a very strong run defense, even though they're a very weak pass defense? And then how do you end up mixing that in? I think you get a little play action. Go ahead and force those secondary to come in, play up tight, and then try to throw over their heads. That's what's been going on predominantly with them. But they also can't get any pass rush. And so how do you counter what's going to be happening on the defense side of the ball, right? With Aaron Donald going against Russell Wilson, like you mentioned, having more sacks against him than any other quarterback that he's faced, then they've got to get some pressure on the quarterback. And I just don't think that's necessarily going to happen unless they stop the run. If they can't stop the run, it's going to be a very long day for the Seahawks. But there's a reason that Russell Wilson is in the talk for the MVP candidacy, and that's because he's playing like he's trying to will his team to a Super Bowl. I just don't know if it's going to be enough against a very strong NFC West. So let's keep moving forward. We got the. Go ahead.
No, I was saying I think it's something to say that that both these teams, the one that randomly shows some inconsistency here and there in the last couple of years is that Rams team. I don't know if that's going to pop up, but
because of their weak offense. I mean, I think their defense has been stronger than most the last couple of years for obvious reasons. But I just don't know if they have the offense that can consistently hang with a lot of people. But we need to keep on rolling. So let's talk about the San Francisco 49ers getting into the New Orleans Saints, who obviously coming off that huge win against the Bucs last week. You have the number 3 defense in New Orleans, number 1 rush defense, going against a struggling 49ers offense. Matt, what do you have there?
I'm not considering this to be the 49ers. This is the 29ers since they have like 20% of their team on injury. I think this doesn't look good for them. I mean, Seattle coming off, or not Seattle, sorry, the Saints. But like we said, just coming off a big game. I'm trying to look. There's still questions. The one thing the 49ers do have, there is, I've seen Drew Brees and Michael Thomas has been banged up this week. I was just trying to see if they're, I want to say Drew Brees, but the biggest thing is Michael Thomas go playing because he's been banged up. But I hope he is, because I want to see this Saints offense more with all of their weapons. That was their first game last week with all the weapons. But for me, I don't know. The 49ers chance of winning this game is going to be hard because we all know what this Saints offense can do to teams, and the Saints defense also is no joke. We seen what they was able to do. Tom Brady put pressure, and they don't have Jimmy Garoppolo behind center. They have Nick Mullen. So I mean, for me, I just can't see how 49ers can pull out a victory. I mean, the only thing I think of is if Kyle Shanahan can be like a magician and pull out a great game plan for offensively.
Yeah, the 49ers have been, because they've been so beat up and so hurt, they've relied on the run game to really keep them into games so they can stand a chance late. But, I just don't think that they're going to be able to run very successfully against this Saints defense. Like I said, number 1 rushing defense in the league for a reason. I think that they do a really good job there in the box getting after it. You got Trey Hendrickson, who's number 3 in sacks in the league at 7.5. It's just a very solid front 7, and against a very weak 49ers offense. Their strength has been their defense. They're missing a couple key components there, but this Saints offense probably one of the most powerful offenses in the league when they have all their horses running, and it'll be I think it's going to be a long day for San Francisco. We're running a little short on time. Sorry, Charlie, we got to keep on rolling. Let's go to your favorite team. Go ahead. You want to say something? Go for it.
Yeah, I would just say these two teams are two of the biggest teams with penalties in the NFL this year. And I think the 49ers have to capitalize on that. And I got to tell you, Saints, if I say the 49ers, the one thing that they don't have to worry about today with these young quarterbacks is the Saints aren't big for interceptions this year. So I think that's going to help them out, and they may be able to surprise us a little bit. I still think the Saints win, but I think they could come up, especially if they can finish in the red zone.
Points. Charlie, let's talk about two of your favorite teams. The Cincinnati Bengals going into the undefeated Pittsburgh Steelers.
I hate those.
Now, we talked about how the Rams are having the number 2 defense in sacks in the league. Well, guess what? The Steelers are number 1 for a reason. they're there at number one in sacks. They have absolutely been on a tear there with Watts and company. They're number 3 in takeaways. They've been a dominant force there on defense. Does the young Joe Burrows?
I
What does
think
he have to do?
I think this.
What does he have to do to beat this Steelers defense?
I think this week Joe Burrows takes him. Burrows he's showing a lot better every single week here. He's getting more consistent. He's getting definitely more comfortable in this league. You know, you can see he's loose out there. He's calm, and the Steelers have been on a tear. Don't get me wrong, but I think that Burrows, he gets the ball in the air. He's consistent. I think that he comes out with a surprise victory today, just based on just big offensive plays. I think he plays a little bit like how Notre Dame's been playing. Just one of those big plays just comes ahead and wins it for him.
I'll just this is for me gonna be quick. I'm just saying, yeah, they've been on a tear, but they've struggled offensively in their defense, who was top against the rush defense. They fell off a little against the Ravens and last week. But my key is if Cincinnati can get a running game going, and that's how this defense have been struggling the last 2 weeks, especially like even we saw the Cowboys. If they can get a running game and Joe Burrow can play what he's been playing like, they do have a good chance of being the Steelers team, because the Steelers team just felt like they have just not been focused lately. You know, I'm curious to see if they can bounce back. If they are able to bounce back, it's going to be very hard for Joe Burrow to can try to pull out a win in Pittsburgh.
No, Matt, I agree with you. I think that if the Bengals can run the ball, then they stand a chance. Here's the problem with that. Bengals are 26th in the league in rushing. Steelers are 6th in rushing defense.
Well, I think
that's where the issue is going to come in. Like, regardless of what Joe Burrow can do back there, if he just sits back in the pocket, they're trying to do drop back passes, he's going to get eaten alive by this Steelers front. They have to run the ball to keep the D line on their toes. They got to be able to mash them forward, but this Bengals offensive line has really struggled. I don't think that they're going to be able to hold up. I think Burrows are going to get beat up this game as long as, like was mentioned before, the Steelers stay focused. You can't overlook the Bengals because they do have enough talent to end up pulling out a win, but they just haven't been playing like it.
They just took Tennessee out.
Exactly, but then again, once again, how Tennessee's been a little lackadaisical these last.
And I would say this. I don't know if we lost Brian. I would just say this about the struggles for the Steelers last 2 weeks been the first half. If the Bengals can take advantage of the struggles of this offense, Steelers, it can look really good.
I think Joe Burrows puts up 4 passing touchdowns this week against the Steelers. I really can see that happening. I mean, the guy, the guy's got the arm for it. He's definitely got the accuracy. He knows how to put. I mean, the guy can score 7 touchdowns and a half in a college playoff game. He can score 4 touchdowns in 4 quarters against the team.
All right. Well, let's move on. Hopefully Brian's connection will come back to us. If Ravens goes at Patriots on Monday night game tonight, or tomorrow, it will be actually tomorrow night.
That's that right there.
What's for I know this is more been focused on Cam and this New England. What's the chances the Patriots have to pull out a win?
I think they have a solid chance. I still think the Ravens definitely have the edge for sure. But I mean, this is a make or break game. I think the performance that Cam gives in this game is a make or break game. Is going to be one of his make or break games for him. He's been a bit more. Cam's been a bit more consistent in the last 2 weeks. especially with his win last week, which for the second week in a row he called a must win game. I think I think the Patriots stay in this game with the Ravens. I'd like to see them win, but the Ravens win at the end. But I don't. I think they stick with them through the whole thing. Maybe they lose at the end of the fourth quarter, but
I'm gonna have to go totally opposite of this. I think the key comes down to the Ravens. Only way I see the Ravens losing this game if somehow it becomes like against the Steelers where they're turning the ball over 4 times and just shoot themselves in the foot. Outside of that, there was a little turmoil this going into the week of Lamar calling out, kind of not technically not going after saying his name, but kind of throwing his offensive coordinator under the bus. So New England could take that to advantage of maybe there is a little turmoil, but for the Patriots, it's going to be very tough for them to stop this this offense with this Patriots having struggled in defense with 9 people out this season from sitting out and stuff like that, and to injuries also. But if Patriots have any chance, it's going to be the Ravens hurting themselves, and I think they have to control the possession. That's the only way you keep this Ravens offense off the field.
And also, like you said, if they start turning the ball over, the Ravens, Cam Newton, he's one of those guys that you don't want to get excited like that. You know, you want to keep him with his head down and a towel in his head. You don't want to. They start turning over this. The Ravens start turning over the football in this game. It's good. It could be up to anyone.
I agree. I just don't know if they have to worry about this Patriots defense. So here we're getting into the last couple minutes here. Let's go ahead and get the picks in for this week. Let's start off with the Texans going into Cleveland. Charlie, since you're wearing the Cleveland shirt, who you got?
I have Cleveland on that one.
Matt?
I got the Browns. Also.
Same. I think we're all three going to end up taking them there. And I probably should mention that Matt edged out a lead after last week. He's now 12-4 in the season. I'm sitting at 10-6, while our guests are 4-4 thanks to an early cutout there. So let's talk about the Bucks and the Panthers. Matt, you got the Panthers poster behind you. Who you got?
I hope the Panthers win, but like I said earlier in our show, 7-1 coming off big losses, so I'm taking the Bucks.
Charlie?
Ooh, I really want to say the Panthers, but I could see it. But I'm going to stick with the Bucks too.
I'm going to say that the Panthers' fiery passing attack has a chance to end up making a run against the Bucks defense. I think the Bucks offense is going to be where the issue is. But I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to go ahead and say the Panthers don't lose 5 straight. Let's go with the Chargers in Miami. Charlie, who you got?
Miami.
I'm going to go off what you said about the Panthers, Brian. I think the Chargers are due for one. They've blown double-digit leads. I'm picking that they're going to take a lead and hold on to it this week, so I'm taking Chargers.
I think the Chargers are due as well. They've played very well this year. It's just, they've come up short. I think they're finally due. And I think that they have what it takes to put this Miami defense into a bind with that phenomenal passing attack. So I'm going to say the Chargers as well. Let's go with the Bills heading into Arizona.
Bills have played really good. Cardinals, I'm taking the Cardinals. Murray has just looked fantastic, and I think this week this offense can be connecting.
Charlie?
Bills. I guess it's a solid team. I could even go into overtime, but I'm going to I think the Bills come out with a win here.
Yeah, I think the Bills are just too complete of a team to end up dropping to the Cardinals. That defense, too solid. Offense, too explosive. I'm going to go with Buffalo as well. Let's go with Seattle and LA against the Rams.
This one I was on the fence with. The Rams have been struggling up and downs, But at the end of the day, my pick goes is because you can't pick against Russell. So I'm picking Seattle just because I feel like Russell, if this comes down, can pull it out.
Yeah, once again, I don't think I don't think anybody ever likes voting against Russell Wilson, and I definitely don't either, especially in this game. I mean, Aaron Donald's going to be an impact player, but I mean, like Brian said earlier, Russ is trying to. It seems like he's going to will this team to the Super Bowl, and I think he continues that. Continues that later today.
Yeah, I think it comes down to the Seattle's offensive line. If they can hold up against Aaron Donald and the rest of the Rams, that's going to be the big matchup there. If they can't, then I think the Rams are going to end up pulling it out. But as much as I want to put my money on Aaron Donald, I just don't think it's going to be enough with the way Russell Wilson's playing there with having DJ Metcalf to throw the ball to. Let's go against with the 49ers and the Saints. Charlie, who you got?
I think the Saints is going to have it. The 49ers have a chance, but everything has to go right for them today. And and Drew Brees isn't going to let that happen. He's going to stop at least one of their fronts, so I'm going to have to go with the Saints.
I say Saints, and I'm going to say big.
Yeah, Charlie, you say 49ers have a chance. I say they have no chance unless, I don't know, the Saints bus forgets to show up at the stadium. Bengals in Pittsburgh. Charlie, I want to hear your pick on this since you were talking up Joe Burrow.
You know what? This is my controversial pick of the week. I'm going Bengals. I'm seeing it. Only one quarterback, Mark Sanchez, has been a rookie and beat an undefeated team this season. And I think Joe Burrow goes in that list next. Heisman Trophy winner, threw 6 touchdowns in the first half last year in a college playoff game. He's got it.
I'm almost on there jumping with you, but guess what? The only thing I see, Steelers has had 2 bad games. I mean, Mike Tomlin is a hell of a coach. He gets the Steelers back on track, and they're going to be ready for this Bengals team and take them serious.
Yeah, I think Joe Burrow may be lucky if he doesn't leave in a stretcher. I think this Saints defense is going to get absolutely after this Bengals offense, and I'm putting all the eggs in one basket there against the Steelers. Let's go with last pick of the day, Baltimore heading into New England. Charlie?
I'm gonna say Baltimore. Lamar Jackson. I think he's an overwhelming force, and I understand what Matthew's saying. His issues with offensive coordinator, but I mean that Patriots defense. I think Lamar he could easily have a 60-yard run today. Like it's just not crazy for him to do. I mean, if he gets out of there, he could really start cutting that team away.
I got Baltimore. It's very hard to pick the Patriots as they barely squeezed by the 0-8 Jets. So I got Baltimore.
Yeah, I just don't think the Patriots are a very good football team right now. I got to go with the reigning MVP in this matchup, and that ridiculous rushing offense that they have. I got to go with the Ravens too. So that concludes the 3rd episode of the Double V Sports Talk with your special edition of the Triple V with Charlie joining us today. Thank you everybody for joining in. I think we had our highest number of viewers for this episode. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Remember, you can catch us at 11 a.m. on Sunday on BuckHeels Twitch, Folsey Twitch. We are live on Facebook and live on YouTube. Charlie, thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next time.